There was something about the Titanic. It was so very formal. It was so stiff. The atmosphere was stiff. The coziness, well, you know, the kind of get-together feeling, it didn't exist. I always remember going up on the lift. A little boy said to me, "You know, madam, it's quite an honor. I'm only 14 years old. I'm a lift boy."
My mother had this dreadful premonition. She'd never had one before and she never had one after. But she said, no, we can't do this. It's quite wrong. Something dreadful will happen. And I tell you what the sort of woman she was. She'd got both feet on the ground, and for her to behave like that was absolutely unbelievable to everyone. But she just had that premonition. I was 7. I'd read there was a big ship. It didn't really convey as much to us as it did to my parents, obviously. I mean, I'd never been in a ship at all before, so it didn't convey very much to me. But I do know everyone was talking about it.
There was a very slight bump, just a little jar, nothing at all. I went in my room. There was a second light jar, nothing of consequence. But you knew something had happened, and one man said, "Look at that. That's an iceberg, and it's a whopper, because you know there's 1/8 above the water and 7/8 below, and this blooming thing's all the way over the top of the ship." Thought nothing of it. We picked up the bits of ice, and most of us played snowballs.
At 10 minutes to 12, she felt a slight bump. And she said it was just like a train pulling into a station. It just jerked. It was very slight, but she said she knew that it was this dreadful something, and she wakened my father. She wakened me, and my father said no, he wasn't going up on deck again after the night before. But she literally pulled him out of bed and made him go up. And she then said she was going to dress me, and I, being sleepy and very naughty, said I wasn't going to be dressed. Nothing to be dressed for, I'm going back to bed. My father came back very quickly because he could get up to the boat deck in the lift very quickly from where our cabin was. And he came back and he picked me up and wrapped his blanket tightly round me as if I were a baby. And my mother said nothing to him, and I used to say to her sometimes, years afterwards, I can't understand why you didn't say to him, what was it? Which she certainly did not say. And she said, I didn't have to say, what was it? I didn't know what it was, but I knew it was this dreadful something that I had to live with for months. There was nothing more I could say.
A little while later, a man came to my door. His teeth were chattering. He said, "Madam, get up, get out. Do you know, they're making the women and children leave in lifeboats. They say you're coming back for breakfast. You know, these crazy English, they do anything. They make you get up and go off in boats and go off and come back for breakfast. What do you think of that?" But before I went, I locked every window in my 3 staterooms and closed every trunk and locked every trunk and took the keys with me. 19 keys for 19 trunks.
There was accommodation for less than 800 people in the lifeboats, and she was carrying 2,200. So it was a question as who was there in time to get into one of the all too few lifeboats. Well, they weren't launched very quickly, because at first no one thought anything was going to happen. But my father went away and spoke to an officer, and he said, they are going to launch the lifeboats, but you'll all be back on board for breakfast.
I had on my evening slippers, diamond buckles. No, not real diamonds, but diamond. And I had a wool cap and 2 fox furs and a paper-thin broadtail coat and no underwear and no stockings, but a pair of velvet slippers and these buckles, and I lost a buckle. And who should I see? Mr. Mock, a miniature painter. And he said, "Look, there's trouble. I just said, no. Well, he said, you'll have to jump now into the lifeboat. I said, jump? With this thing I've got on? What do you think I am, an acrobat or a monkey or something? I can't jump in this thing. Well, he said, you'll have to. My sister's in that lifeboat.
There wasn't any panic until the lifeboats left, and then there was panic galore. We were down on the ocean. We could hear them running about on the decks and screaming. You can imagine people came up from their cabin, went onto the deck, no lifeboat, tearing around the other side. That's when the panic was there. There wasn't any panic at the time I got in the lifeboat because there weren't enough people up there. And there were enough people there to just get into the lifeboats. But after that, when the others started coming up from their cabins and there were no boats, gosh, there was panic. We could hear it.
Well, I looked at that lifeboat, swinging out on the davits, possibly, I don't know by measurements, but it was an awful long way. And down below was the sea, 14 stories below. What if you jumped and you fell between? No. I never would have left the ship. But a sailor came along and he said, say you don't want to be saved. Well, I'll save your baby. And he grabbed this pig from under my arm and he tossed it in the lifeboat. And I turned to this man Monk and I said, that does it. But when they threw that pig, I knew it was my mother.
Now played a solemn air. Some say autumn, but popular belief says it was nearer my God to thee.
Well, there's no question about the fact that they played, and there's no question about the fact that after we were down on the water and they were playing, they played one version of the hymn, Nearer My God to Thee, of which there are three. I've had this out so many times. And the one they played was the one that was played in church some months after when I was with my grandmother, and I was so frightened I came out of church, I ran out. I knew the tune so well. But they won't have it, the Americans won't have it. People say, no, it's not, it was just ragtime, but it wasn't.
I don't doubt that they were playing music. Other people heard it. But when people say that music played as the ship went down, that is a ghastly, horrible lie.
I didn't close my eyes at all. I saw that ship sink. And I saw that ship break in half. And for so many years, people have argued with me about that. But now at last, it has been proven beyond all doubt that she did break in half. I know she did, I saw her. And the forepart went down nose first, and the stern of that ship stood up in the water for quite a long time, or it seemed a long time to me, and then keeled over.
And then the horrible fear was in my heart, and I think everybody else's, that the dreadful, dreadful suction that had drawn us towards the Titanic would suck us under the Titanic.
And we heard the dreadful sound of people drowning, which was, unbelievable. And then, because our lifeboat was so full, so overfull, the officers called all the boats together and transshipped some of us. One in that boat and two in that and three in that, and I got separated from my mother. And that was the most terrifying thing to happen to a child. But the most dreadful sound of all is the sound of people drowning. The screams. Absolutely ghastly. My mother used to say sometimes, she couldn't get me to talk about it for years, but if ever anyone did talk to me, I said that, she used to say yes. But do you remember the silence that followed it? And that's quite right. It's the whole world stood still that night. Once the lights had gone, the ship had gone, the sound had gone. That was dreadful.